Hello, friends. Erin Bradley here. Welcome back to the Pursuing Freedom podcast. If you're new here, well, I'm glad you're here because you are in for a great show. I was honored to have the opportunity to interview two of my personal real estate heroes, Tim Rhode and Pat Hiban, authors of the Quitter's Manifesto, Quit a Job You Hate for Work You Love. The crazy story about this book is that I read it in one sitting about a year ago, and then 5 more times as I was contemplating the terrifying decision of leaving my 16 plus year career in the mortgage business to pursue my passion for all things real estate investing, coaching, speaking, training. And the full disclosure, we recorded this a year ago amidst a hiatus in the podcast as I was trying to figure out next steps. And now here we are, finally releasing the show. The messages shared here are timeless and cover taking leaps in all areas of life and business to create a life you love, which is what we're all about here at Pursuing Freedom. I hope you enjoy the show as much as I did. And if you do, please be sure to leave a review wherever you're consuming it. Go ahead and enjoy the show, and I look forward to hearing from you. Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends, and thanks for tuning in today. Welcome back. We've been on a little hiatus and I've missed you all so much. So I could not be happier to be back here recording with two of my favorite people that I've admired in their journeys in the real estate space, entrepreneurial space, and beyond. I've got Pat Hiban here, who was a top-selling real estate agent for many years, also the founder and host of the Real Estate Rockstars podcast. He's an author, he's a trainer, he's a founder of an incredible organization called GoBundance, which I'm a member of and I love. I could go on, but we'll be here all day if I give all of his accomplishments and accolades. We've also got Tim Rhode here for an encore performance. He's been on the show once before, and we had such a dynamic interview. I'm thrilled to have him back. Tim is the founder of One Life Fully Lived, an incredible organization that helps to elevate people and give them the tools and the philosophies that we are all consuming to help more people live an amazing life with purpose and intention. He also had an incredibly successful career as a real estate agent and team leader and investor and all the things. So we have beyond a wealth of knowledge and experience to bring to you guys today. And I know you're going to walk away inspired and with actionable items to take into your life. And the last thing I want to share here is that these guys just recently co-authored a book that I read in one sitting, and I've now since read 5 times because it was so good. And it inspired a major life change in my own personal life. It's called The Quitter's Manifesto, Quit a Job You Hate for the Work You Love. And I will say with a caveat, I did not hate my job. However, having read their book and knowing these guys and following their journey along the ways, it did inspire me to take a massive leap and leave my mortgage business behind to pursue a life of investing and contribution and coaching and speaking full-time. So here we are, life-changing book, life-changing humans here. So with no further ado, Pat, I'd love to start with you. I love that you both began with humble beginnings. And so I'd love if you could share a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are today, bringing this amazing book to the world.
Yeah, sure. Well, basically everything I know about quitting, I learned from Tim. Tim was kind of my mentor. So, he did it first. He was kind of on his way out when I met him. So he kind of inspired me from day one, as other people tend to do when you meet them. And kind of just pushed me in that direction. And, then I called him up one day during the pandemic, and I said, hey, there's a lot of people that are quitting. There's this whole great resignation going on. Why don't we write a book about it? And I get a lot of ideas and I journal a lot, and, a lot of my ideas never go anywhere, just kind of fall flat. And Tim persisted in making this book happen. He called me back a couple of days later and was like, I think this is a good idea. Let's keep going on this idea. And lo and behold, we manifested the book.
I love it. Well, let me ask you a question, Pat, before we move on to Tim and his story, is that, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but I think a lot of listeners can. So in the early stages of building a business in real estate, which is how this podcast began, was a real estate podcast. And it sort of evolved into this idea of pursuing freedom, which is a diversification of things, right? But in the early years, when you're building that business and you're starting from nothing, and you have this idea of what success and freedom looks like, how did that evolve for you from when you started out as a young guy in the real estate space and hopes and dreams, lack of experience, to where you build a very successful business, to where you are on the other side? I mean, what does it look like, the evolution for you as success and freedom would be defined?
I think that I think what comes to mind for me is that I've never really ever thought small. Like when I graduated from college, all my friends were getting, a lot of them were getting sales jobs because, all my friends took these ambiguous majors like history and psychology and sociology and stuff like that just to get out of college. Um and so we all kind of went into sales. Um and they were selling small things, making a couple $100, and I got introduced to selling real estate where you could make a couple $1,000 each sale, and it never logically made any sense to me whatsoever why I would put effort into making a couple hundred where I can make a couple thousand. And I kind of have always had that unreasonableness in my mind. Like, if I'm not making money, if I'm not making a lot of money on something, it's just the juice is just not worth the squeeze. I would just rather not do it. You know what I mean? I'm just lazy in that sense, and I don't know if you've ever seen the von Manstein matrix, but basically it talks about the best people, and you have 4 different quadrants, but the one quadrant that von Manstein came up was lazy and intelligent, and those are the people that succeed. The hardworking and intelligent, those are the ones you want to have working for you. But the lazy and intelligent, those are the ones that are running the companies and making and taking advantage of unfair advantages when they see them because they feel that that's supposed to happen. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, but I'm laughing because I'm like, anybody that knows your story would probably resist to define you as lazy. But ironically, I have a saying that reactivity is laziness disguised as busyness, because it's just simply being too lazy to prioritize, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're just going to react all day and check boxes and be busy, you're actually being lazy because you're not being discerning about what's the most important thing to do. So it's an interesting take or spin on the word lazy. I love that though. I've never heard that before. All right, Tim, if you wouldn't mind, give a little intro and how you found your way into the real estate space, how it's evolved to where you are today, and if anything, how your personal definition of success evolved from getting started to where you quit your real estate business.
Cool. I think I've come full circle because when I was young and in high school, I was quite lazy. I didn't do anything because I didn't see the reason for it. None of it made sense. Why am I learning the periodic tables? So I barely graduated high school consequently. And at 25 years old, I was a part-time grocery clerk. And then I found my niche selling real estate. And it was the first time I ever put the key in the lock and it fit. So I sold 3 houses my first weekend and cranked the song Welcome to the Jungle every single day at 7 a.m. And I loved my career till I didn't. And I know many of you can relate to this. It started oxidizing. We have something in the book called the soul-sucking audit. And I found myself on the low side of that soul-sucking audit. So it actually took me like 4 or 5 years to get the courage to tap out. So I did that on a whim, candidly. I wasn't financially free. A lot of the things we talk about in the book, I didn't do. I just knew it wasn't working for me next. And I wanted what's next. And I had the courage to tap out anyway. and it all kind of worked itself out.
So that's interesting to me. I didn't realize that. I thought that when you took that leap to, as you said on the last interview we did together, to get the goods in the woods, which is like speaking my love language there. I thought that you had reached a point where you had it all like buttoned up and prepared and you were ready to go.
Well, in some ways I did. I had quite a few cash flowing properties coming in, but on paper I was making $20,000 a month. And we all know at the end of the year when I did my taxes, well, then I had to do the roof and then I had to evict them. And at the end, I was barely breaking even. So it wasn't like I talked to so many people today, they got $1 million in the bank and, $50,000 a month coming in, and it's costing them $15,000 per month to live off. And they're scared to make the move, and that was one thing I didn't have is I just done a flipper and I'd made $35,000 off that. And so that was the conversation in my head. Well, what do you do if you're not the listing king? And it was like, well, I never want to list another home, but what if I just turned myself into an investor and I went in that route? So I did something really wise. I wrote Tim is Now Investor Plan. What's the outcome? What's the purpose? What's the action steps? How are you going to make this happen? And in a fit of, that mad as hell, I don't want to do this anymore. I just poured all of that into the plan while on vacation, looked at the plan Monday morning and just started executing full out, like how I do everything. If I'm going to do it, freaking do it.
I love how you referred to this, like you loved your career until you didn't, and how it basically oxidized. Have you guys, either of you, ever read the book Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt?
No.
Okay, I highly recommend it. And they're both shaking their head no. So I highly recommend it. It's interesting when you talk about this oxidizing of something that you once loved, right? Like just because you used to love it or just because you're good at it doesn't necessarily mean you have to continue to pretend to love it or continue to do it at all. And in the book, he outlines these 4 different categories that you can qualify certain activities in your life and business as either desire zone, like he calls it passionate and proficient. I'm good at it and I enjoy it. And then distraction is I enjoy it, but I'm not good at it. And then disinterest zone is I'm good at it, but I don't enjoy it. So like proficient, but not passionate. And the interesting thing is he says it's the most dangerous place to be is disinterest, or in this case, oxidation, as you said, or oxidized, because people will stay there for years or even decades because it's simply what pays the bills. And I think that's a fascinating thing to explore because you talked about the word courage. I mean, you've both quit careers at every stage, right? So you've quit the entry-level job when you were young to get into real estate. You've quit the big career of real estate to pursue the next thing that was important to you. And you talked about courage and how it takes a lot of courage to listen to what your heart is saying and to be willing to listen and to take that leap. So, what does it mean for you, Pat? You guys talk about it in the book that we talk about this, like the fear, right? The fear of what people will think. And then you talked about how people love a quitter, which I think is an interesting thing to unpack because we're all here with our human being fear, right? We can't remove it from being part of being human. So what was it like for you, Pat, as you're in your own journey of like recognizing when fear is holding you back? And are you someone who waited 4 or 5 years like Tim, or did you feel like, are you more compelled to act quickly when you notice that you're in that oxidized stage or you're in that disinterest zone?
Yeah. Well, I think we go through seasons in life. I don't think it necessarily, for me, happened a lot in my younger years. Like, I sold real estate a long time, and I don't think I really ever more than once or twice thought to myself, I want to quit. In the middle of it. But then once I did quit, I think that there were probably 7 or 8 other things that I tried that I quit. It's hard to find things that really get your blood flowing, that you kind of gravitate towards naturally, kind of what you were just saying about the Michael Hyatt book, things that kind of like pull you when you look at a list of things to do that you just automatically do first. That also make a lot of money. And so the way my brain thinks is, I love doing that, but that's not going to make me the most. So, let me do this thing that's going to make me the most instead, that I don't like as much. So, or vice versa. I mean, it's just a, I don't know. It's just how I think. So and again, I don't know if I'm answering your question directly or not, but.
No, it's good. I mean, I guess one of my questions is, now that you've, navigated your own journey of, I guess, following the light, if you will, rather than following what you think you should do. What advice do you have to people that are feeling any inclination? I mean, it could be that they're still working a full-time job and they're moonlighting real estate on the side, and they know that they want to go full-time in real estate, but they're not. Or maybe they've been selling real estate for a long time and they're ready to build a team, but they're afraid. And like, there's a lot of yeah buts going on there. Like, oh, must be nice. It must be easy for Pat, or it must be easy for Tim, and here's why I can't, right? Like, anything that you can unpack there in terms of like people's limiting beliefs and the yeah but that holds them back from whatever their heart might be trying to say.
Well, it's kind of like we like to say quitting is like a fall. It becomes real easy once you let go. And a lot of it is just letting go and doing it. The thing that people don't realize is that you can always go back. Like, they always think that, they're going to, the worst is going to happen. Like, if they quit their job or they hire a team member and pay him a salary, that the result, if it fails, is going to be them homeless on the street, begging for food, living in a car. And in reality, it isn't. In reality is you just fire that person, right? And then you're back to where you started. Or the reality is you just call your boss back and they're probably like, oh, we'd love to have you back, or you're probably eligible enough to get 3 other jobs, that actually pay more than you were making at your job that you left. You know what I mean? There's always usually there's a better, more realistic reality to failure when you quit something. Does that make sense?
100%. I mean, when we moved from Denver, where I was running my business, to a ski town, I had a million reasons why I couldn't or shouldn't. And I remember sitting down with my husband and saying, here's all the reasons why we can't or we shouldn't. And then what's the worst case scenario? We come right back to where we are right now, which is pretty good. So for anybody listening that's on the brink of taking some kind of risk, first of all, we've already all taken risks and we're still here. We're okay. So we also have to remember that there's a muscle there that we can build and develop and strengthen over time, of knowing that the worst case scenario may just be exactly where you are right now, which is just fine. It's just a question of like, is fine good enough for you? Or do you want it to be freaking awesome? So for you, Tim, I'm curious, what happened? What kind of perspective can you share on the other side of taking leaps that you wouldn't have like been able to taste or experience without having jumped before you know how?
Yeah, well, if I did the tried and true, first of all, I'd still be a full-time grocery clerk waiting for the pension. Oh my goodness, that would have been disastrous. The second time, I'd still be selling real estate, living in an area I didn't like. So by taking those 2 bold steps, it got me out of my comfort zone and had me prepare for an amazing time in the market, which, now it's in a little bit of a lull, which is a great time to learn your craft for the next upswing. So I caught the next ride on the roller coaster and tapped out into the top of the California market that allowed me to move to the mountains and get the goods in the woods and live in an amazing place. And then ask, what's next? and got some time to think about things and think about, what do I really want to do? And there's a quote in the book about interest over obligation, doing things you love to do versus what you have to do. And when I let go and got into that realm of just spending a lot of time of getting the goods in the woods and allowing what is next in my path. And he said something early on about when you when you choose for everything, you eliminate what may be the most important thing for you to do going forward. And that's where One Life Fully Lived developed. That's where GoBundance, my part of GoBundance developed, is I have the time and the resources, because I made the move, to do what I really wanted to do. And that fed me for a lifetime, and it's kind of allowed me to go on getting more masterful at the quit. So
awesome. And I want to just point out here that I'm not suggesting that every person listening to this interview is on the brink of quitting, especially their career in real estate. Hopefully what brought you to this podcast is that you're looking to improve and evolve as a human and a business owner. So it's not necessarily about quitting, but I'm curious if one of you guys could unpack what you talked about, the suck meter, I think it was called, and interest over obligation, because I believe that principle of interest over obligation can apply within the framework of what you're doing to reduce the suck meter so that you don't have to quit or feel compelled to quit. So like you guys talked about it on the interview I heard with Hal Elrod, where you talked about this, how do you gauge whether it's something that's like worth leaping into a completely different arena versus whether we could apply some interest over obligation in our day-to-day within the career you're in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the parts of the book that Tim and I love talking about, is the IO quotient, right? That's Naval Ravikant from the Almanac of Naval. And, we love that part. Tim, you want to elaborate on the IO quotient?
Yeah, well, so many people are on the hamster wheel of life. You're just in the trenches doing what you have to do all day, every day, and rather than what you'd like to do. So when you have the time and can get yourself the resources to do what you want to do all day, it just makes life that much juicier. So that's just something that we've both been blessed to get to that point, and that's what we want for the people that read the Quitter's Manifesto. So,
and what does it look like, if you don't mind unpacking? I don't know if I'm saying it right, but the suck meter. How to determine if you're really like, do you really hate your job or you're just having a bad day?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. I guess that some people, if they're having a bad day, they're going to rank really low on parts of the suck meter. Like, are you excited to go to work? Are you respected? You could feel like a lot of the questions on the suck meter are low numbers one day, and then the next week they could literally be high numbers. I've never had anybody ask, could it change? And I guess the answer is, yeah, you probably should take it every week. I mean, it probably won't take long that if you took it every week for 4 weeks, that that you would get an average that would determine whether you're 7 or above or not, which I think, is it 6 or 7, Tim, that we recommend that's where you quit?
Somewhere in that range, 6 3/4. But the thing is over time it gets worse. It's kind of like you're sitting on a nail and it's just starting poking you more and more. So at first it could be, if you did it over a month's time, it's this isn't bad. Well, at 34 years old, it wasn't bad. By 38, that nail really started to hurt. And at 40, I said, you know what, I'm done. And I didn't know that was coming, but it just really got to the point where I was mad as hell and not going to take it anymore. So I think that's the, and the best way to know this better is buy the Quitter's Manifesto and read the book. So that
100%.
so you can go deep. Yeah, you can go deep into there's like 10 different concepts in the book that really help you. It's a very tactical book that's going to help you navigate going from one end of it. I love what I do, and I'm starting to feel the pinch of it's oxidizing on me to, man, I am at the wit's end and I can't take this anymore. So a lot of people are at some point in that range. So
totally. And I think
buy the
that
book.
it's interesting because as folks I sort of equate it to going up a mountain where you don't know where the cliff is. So if you're starting to sense that, there's a lot of really actionable stuff in the book, you guys, in regards to preparation. And there's no reason why everyone shouldn't begin preparing for any alternative at every time. Like you can never be over prepared. So there's really awesome step-by-step process in the book on how to be prepared. And then the other thing is that if you're only in the beginning of your journey of your career, and this isn't even something that's on your radar, it's still something you can baby step into, which is just saying no to certain tasks and certain commitments that start to drain you over time. So it's not necessarily applying to an entire career change at all times, you guys, but it can also just apply to like when it's time to say no or cut something out that is no longer serving you. And I don't know, I love it. I think it's an amazing, awesome, easy read that, like I said, I've already read it 5 times since I read it the first time in September. So, I just want to say thank you guys for putting this book out there and for taking the time to share.
Our best fan, Pat.
That's great. That's about as many times as we've read it. Wow, that's crazy.
Well, I don't read every word every time, but I'm like a nerd. If I find a book that I love, I highlight it and then I go back and read the highlighted parts and I like scribble notes. And yeah, if it's good, I'm going to apply it. You can't just be an education junkie. You got to be an action junkie. So if you're going to read something and be inspired, don't put it down and let the inspiration just dwindle away. You got to do something about it. So
yeah, that's a great point.
Thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time. Pat, if folks want to follow you or find all the other stuff you've got out there to offer, what's the best way to look you up?
Yeah, well, Tim and I created a website. We're both on there. You can reach out to either of us on there, and there's information on the book. There's also information on, if you want a free companion guide to the book, we have a link to that in there, and that's simply quittersmanifestobook.com. That's quittersmanifestobook.com, or of course you could just Google us and follow us wherever people do.
Awesome. And Tim, how about you? Where can folks find you, follow you?
You can reach out to me at tim@timrode.com, and the book is available on Amazon. It's on Audible, and we'd love you read the book and give us a nice review. That'd be great. So tim@timrode.com.
Tim Rhode, Pat Hiban, absolute legends in the real estate space. So grateful to have you guys on the show. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it was fun, Aaron. Thanks a lot. You're a great interviewer.
Awesome. And to all my friends out there pursuing freedom, as always, I love and appreciate you. I'm thrilled to be back. Please reach out to me at Aaron@pursuingfreedom.com or hit me up through the website. I would love to connect with you and hear from you. And I can't wait to see where the future brings us. Here's to building a life you don't need a vacation from. Erin Bradley here again. Thanks for tuning in. And I hope you enjoyed the show with Tim and Pat. I find them to be an incredible inspiration, especially when it comes to having dreams and taking leaps. And I hope you leave here inspired to continue to follow your heart and build a life you don't need a vacation from. If you haven't already heard, save the date for November 30th from 10 to 12 Mountain Time. I will be hosting a free virtual national business planning workshop, which is something I've been doing every year for over a decade, where I lead you through a reflection, vision, and goal-setting process to find the hopes and dreams that are anchored in your heart, create a simple one-page plan for 2024, and build that business and life that you love. Here's to making it a great day, and I'll see you next time.